I was lying awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling fan, when I heard a suitcase hit the hallway floor. Heavy, rushed, angry. I knew that sound. I'd heard it too many times in this life. I sat up, slipped into my robe, and walked out just in time to see my daughter barreling toward the door with tears staining her shirt. Angela? She didn't slow down. She didn't look at me. She just yanked the door open. "Where are you going?" I whispered. She finally stopped, just for a second. Her shoulders trembled. She didn't meet my eyes when she muttered, "I can't do this anymore." Then she disappeared into the night. I stood there for a long moment, fighting the urge to go after her. You can't fix what someone refuses to face. You can only watch and hope the storm doesn't swallow them whole. The next morning, my phone pinged with messages from neighbors. At first, I thought it was some early morning gossip, maybe raccoons knocking over trash bins again. But the messages read, "Antonia, why is your truck outside the pawn shop? Is everything okay? I saw people loading stuff from your beach house. Did you sell the place?" My stomach dropped. No, she wouldn't. She couldn't. I drove out there myself. My beach house, the one I built nail by nail after Robert died, the one where Angela learned to swim, the one place that still felt like hope, stood stripped bare. Curtains gone, appliances gone. The old rocking chair I used to sit in at sunset, gone. My name was on the deed. My signature was nowhere on any agreement. But Angela's handwriting was everywhere. She had sold it. She had sold my truck. She had emptied what little I had left. And for the first time in years, I felt something I thought I'd buried forever. Betrayal that burned hotter than grief. I drove home shaking. I didn't call her. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Not yet. At my kitchen table, I stared at the pile of bills I'd been pretending weren't there. Medical copays, utility disconnect warnings, property tax letters. My savings was barely hanging on. Angela had always been impulsive, emotional, reckless with money. But stealing from me, selling the last things I cherished, that was a new kind of cruelty. My hands trembled as I pulled out the one envelope I had never opened, the one Robert left for me before he passed. I had kept it sealed for years, too scared to see the truth inside. That afternoon, I tore it open. Inside was a single letter and a key. If you ever find yourself in trouble, open the safety box. What's inside is yours. I wanted you to live peacefully after I'm gone. My breath caught. Robert had been quiet, gentle, the kind of man who fixed the neighbor's fence without being asked. But he had also been secretive about his money. Our house had been simple, our lifestyle modest, yet he never seemed worried about expenses. Maybe this was why. The bank manager recognized Robert's name, and the way his expression shifted told me everything before he even opened the vault. "Mrs. Brooks, you should sit down." Inside the box were bonds, account instructions, estate papers, and a sealed folder with a list of assets under Robert's name. Multiple properties, a trust, investments I had never heard of. My pulse hammered. My life, my future, had never been as fragile as I thought. Robert had planned for me to survive anything, except my own daughter turning into a storm. But mixed with relief was something darker. Guilt. If I had opened this years ago, maybe I wouldn't have leaned so heavily on Angela. Maybe she wouldn't resent me. Maybe she wouldn't have stolen from me. I went home drained, overwhelmed, and that's when she returned. Late evening, front door slamming, heavy footsteps. "Mom, why did you tell people I sold your house? Why are you making me look like a thief?" I stared at her. Unwashed hair, mascara streaked down her face, a silence under her words that felt like a dare. "Because you did," I said softly. She threw her hands up. "I needed help. You weren't giving me any. I was drowning. I thought you'd understand." "You didn't ask," I whispered. "You took." Her jaw tightened. "So what? You're acting like you're poor or something? I almost laughed. If only she knew. I didn't tell her about the safety box. I didn't tell her about the investments, the trust, the wealth I now had access to. She had lost the right to that knowledge the moment she signed my name like it meant nothing. She stomped off to her old bedroom. I let her go. She needed space. I needed clarity. But at midnight, when the house was silent, I heard faint whimpering coming from her room. Not loud, not dramatic, soft, broken. For a moment, I nearly walked in, but I stopped at the door. I couldn't fix her. Not like this. Not anymore. Instead, I called the one person who had always insisted something was wrong with Angela's behavior, our old attorney, Mr. Hansen. He had seen enough families tear themselves apart to know when someone was spiraling. When I explained everything, he sighed deeply. Antonia, what she did is illegal. But before you take action, you need to understand what she has gotten herself into. There may be more than you realize. More? The next morning, he handed me a thick folder with documents he'd pulled through a private investigator. Bank statements, loan applications, debt records. Angela wasn't drowning. She was buried. 26 months of missed credit payments, 4 different high-interest loans, gambling charges, online casino deposits, subscriptions for things I refused to believe my daughter was involved in. And the cherry on top, she had a partner in this disaster. A man who had been convincing her to take bigger risks. A man with a record of fraud. I felt sick. My daughter hadn't betrayed me out of need. She had betrayed me out of desperation and manipulation. And she had no idea I knew. That afternoon, I walked into her room quietly. She sat on the floor, staring at her phone like it might explode. "Angela," I said gently. She looked up, eyes red. "What do you want now?" I took a deep breath. "We need to talk." She laughed bitterly. "About how I ruined your life? About how I'm a failure? I already know." "No," I whispered. "About how someone is using you, and how far it's gone." Her phone slipped from her hand. "Mom, what are you talking about?" I sat down across from her, the folder resting in my lap. "Everything," I said softly. "I know everything." Her face drained of color. And that is where everything truly began. Angela stared at me as if I had peeled back the walls of her mind and exposed everything she never wanted anyone to see. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. For a moment, she looked like a little girl again, the same frightened expression she had whenever thunder cracked too close to the house. "Mom," she whispered, "how did you—" "I had to," I replied softly. "You didn't leave me any choice." Her eyes flickered to the folder in my lap, and panic shot through her face like lightning. She lunged forward, grabbing it, but I held it firmly. "No, sit down," I said gently, but with a tone she hadn't heard from me in years. She froze. I opened the folder, pulled out a bank statement, and placed it between us. "What is all this?" Her shoulders collapsed. She covered her face with her hands. "I didn't want you to know." "Why not?" "Because," she choked, "I've already disappointed you enough." I stayed quiet. I didn't rush her. I didn't scold. I just let the stillness settle between us until she finally lowered her hands, eyes swollen, voice trembling. "It started small," she said. "I was behind on rent. Then I needed money for the car. Then more bills came in. I took a loan, thinking I'd pay it back fast. Then I took another when the interest got too big. And then it just kept growing. I didn't know how to stop." "And him?" I asked. She stiffened. "Don't bring him into this. Angela, he has a criminal record. He's used women before. He's changed." "No. He found someone who would pay his debts with stolen money." She stood sharply, fury twisting her features. "You don't know him." "I know exactly what men like him do," I said quietly. "I've spent my entire life helping people escape them." She paced the room like a trapped animal. Every few seconds, her breathing hitched, the panic rising. I didn't mean to sell your house, she said suddenly. I was going to tell you, I swear. But then he said he needed money or he'd lose everything, and then, Angela, I stood too. Look at me. She turned, tears streaking down her cheeks. You could have come to me, I whispered. You have nothing, she shouted. I didn't want to add my problems to your problems. I didn't want to be another bill for you. The irony hit me so sharply I almost laughed. If only she knew the truth. Instead, I walked to her, placed my hands on her shoulders, and said, You are my daughter. I would have helped you, but you stole from me instead. She collapsed against me, sobbing so hard her body shook. I held her tightly, even though a part of me still felt raw, hurt, betrayed. After several minutes, I guided her to sit back down. There's something you need to hear, I said, and it won't be easy. She wiped her face, exhausted. What now? I told her about the safety box, about the assets, about the investments, about how Robert had built a quiet fortune and left it for me if I ever needed it. Her eyes widened with shock. You're rich? No, I'm secure. There's a difference. But why didn't you tell me? She whispered. Because I didn't want you to live your life waiting for me to solve your problems. I paused. And because I didn't want you to rely on money the way your father feared people would. She looked down, shame washing over her. I messed everything up. Yes, I said simply. But the difference between a mistake and a tragedy is what you do next. She hugged herself. What happens now? You're going to face everything you've done, I said softly. And you're going to stand on your own feet, but you won't be alone. Her eyes lifted, hopeful but fearful. Does that mean you're helping me? I'm helping you fix this, I said, not escape it. For the first time in months, maybe years, she didn't argue. The next few days were heavy, painful, but necessary. I met with Mr. Hansen again. He reviewed every document, every debt, every fraudulent signature Angela had been coaxed into making. The picture became uglier with each page. Your daughter isn't the mastermind, he said. She's the victim, but she's legally responsible unless we prove she was coerced. Angela sat hunched, twisting her hands together. I didn't know what I was signing, she kept repeating. He said he'd take care of it. He said he just needed my name. Her voice broke every time. The lawyer sighed. We'll need evidence, messages, recordings. Anything that shows he manipulated you. Angela swallowed. I have some texts. That's a start. But what she didn't have was courage. Not yet. The night before we were supposed to meet the investigator, Angela came into my room quietly, not knocking, just standing in the doorway like she did when she was a child after a nightmare. Mom, can I sleep here? She whispered. I looked at her. Hair messy, eyes soft, face stripped of all the pride and anger she usually carried like armor. Come in, I said. She curled up on the edge of my bed, like she used to when she was sick. I watched her breathing slow, and for a few minutes I allowed myself to believe we had stepped back into time, before mistakes, before debts, before betrayal. But the world doesn't rewind itself. The morning would come with consequences, and it did. The investigator arrived with a stack of files that confirmed what I already knew. The man Angela loved had been draining her financially, emotionally, mentally. He'd done it to others. He'd left a trail of ruined lives behind him. Angela's face turned ash gray when she saw the evidence. He used me, she whispered. All this time. He used me. It broke her in a way I couldn't fix. When she finally lifted her head, there was a deadness in her eyes I had never seen before. What do I do now? She asked in a hollow voice. You fight back, I said softly, and you start by cutting him out of your life. She swallowed hard. I don't think I can do that. You already have, I said. You just haven't accepted it yet. That afternoon, she blocked his number. No crying, no drama, just a quiet click. And that quiet click was the first real step she had taken towards saving herself. But once he realized she was gone, he didn't stay silent. He didn't disappear. He did exactly what men like him always do. He came after her, and he came hard. The first sign of trouble came 3 days later. Angela and I were sitting in the living room, sorting through a pile of letters, when her phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. "You think you can just disappear?" She went completely still. Her fingers tightened around the phone until her knuckles turned white. "Is it him?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer, which was answer enough. Another message arrived instantly. "You owe me. Don't forget who saved you." Her breath turned shallow. Her eyes glossed over, and for a moment I thought she might faint. I took the phone gently out of her hands. "This ends today," I said. Angela shook her head, panic rising. "Mom, please, don't make it worse." "He already made it worse," I said softly. "You just haven't seen how far he'll go." Before I could say more, the doorbell rang. Angela flinched so violently she knocked over the stack of papers. Her whole body trembled. "It's him," she whispered. "He found me." I walked to the door, but before opening it, I looked through the peephole. Not him. Just a delivery boy holding a package. But Angela stayed frozen across the room, hands pressed to her mouth, shaking uncontrollably. That reaction alone told me how deep this man had sunk his claws into her. After I signed for the parcel, I sat beside her. "Angela," I murmured, "you're not living, you're surviving. That's what he did to you." She buried her face in her knees. "I didn't think it would get this bad." "It always gets this bad," I said. "Men like him don't stop when you walk away. They stop when they're exposed." She lifted her head slightly, eyes swollen. "So what do? We take away his power." The next morning, Mr. Hansen helped us file an affidavit documenting all the messages, threats, and financial coercion. Angela sat across from him, trembling through every sentence she signed. "This will protect you," he assured her, "and we can file for damages once we have enough proof." Angela nodded, but her gaze drifted to the window. Paranoid, jumpy, always expecting him to appear. And eventually, he did. It happened on a rainy afternoon, one where the sky hung low and heavy. Angela and I were sorting boxes in the garage when a shadow moved at the edge of the driveway. At first I thought it was a neighbor, but then the figure stepped closer, and my heart dropped. Tall, broad shoulders, hood pulled up to hide his face. Hands shoved deep in his pockets. Angela recognized him instantly. Her entire body locked up. Her breathing stopped. She backed away until she hit the wall. "Angela," he called out, voice low, mocking. "You've been hard to reach." I moved in front of her without thinking. "Leave." He smirked. "This is between me and her." "No," I said firmly. "It stopped being between you and her the moment you stole from her and manipulated her." A flicker of irritation crossed his face. He took one step closer. "I don't think you understand." "I understand perfectly," I cut in, "and I suggest you leave before the police get here." He laughed under his breath. "You wouldn't dare." I held up my phone. "Already did." His expression shifted. Surprise, then annoyance, then a flash of fear. But instead of backing off, he leaned in closer. "You better watch your tone," he whispered. "You don't know what she promised me." Angela suddenly shouted, voice shaking, "I don't owe you anything." He turned toward her, eyes cold. "You owe me everything." She stepped back, stumbling over a box. Her face crumpled as tears streamed down her cheeks. "Just leave me alone." "You think you can walk away from me?" he hissed. That was enough. I stepped forward. I didn't shout. I didn't flinch. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "If you take one more step toward her, you won't be dealing with her. You'll be dealing with me." He blinked, surprised by the steel in my voice. Men like him never expect resistance from women who look tired, small, or old. They mistake softness for weakness. A mistake he realized too late. Sirens echoed faintly in the distance, approaching fast. He glanced toward the street, calculating whether he could escape before they arrived. Then he threw one last glance at Angela. This isn't over. Yes, I said calmly, it is. He hesitated for a second, then turned and ran down the driveway, disappearing around the corner just as the patrol car pulled in. The officers took our statements, especially Angela's. She was shaking so hard she could barely hold the pen, but she told them everything, every threat, every demand, every manipulation. That was brave, one officer told her. Angela didn't feel brave. She felt terrified, exhausted, and ashamed. That night, she barely spoke. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at her hands. I hate who I became, she whispered finally. No, I said gently. You hate what he turned you into. She shook her head. I let him use me. I let him take everything. You made mistakes, I said softly, but you're fixing them now. She sniffed. Do you really think I can? Yes, I said, because you already have. For the first time, she held my hand without pulling away. The next morning, things took another turn, one I didn't expect. Mr. Hansen called, voice tight. We received something. You need to come in. When we arrived at his office, he handed Angela a printed bank notification. Her eyes widened. What is this? She breathed. He tried to open a new loan name last night, the attorney said. At midnight, after confronting you. Angela's face went sheet white. So he really wanted to destroy me. No, Mr. Hansen corrected. He wanted to control you. But his mistake just gave us enough evidence to file criminal charges. Angela covered her mouth, tears slipping through her fingers. I rubbed her back gently. You're free of him now. But she shook her head. No, Mom, I'm not free. Not yet. And she was right. Because walking away from a manipulator doesn't free you. Facing them does. Owning your choices does. Healing from the damage they caused, that's what frees you. And Angela had a long road ahead. But for the first time, she was walking it. Not stumbling, not running, not hiding. Walking. Step by fragile step. And she had one more step she didn't know she needed to take yet. One that would change everything between us. A step toward the truth she had been avoiding since the beginning. A truth she would discover the next morning when she found a letter on her pillow. A letter I had written. A letter that would finally reveal what Robert had really left behind. And why her betrayal had cut deeper than she ever understood. Angela found the letter before I woke up. I heard her footsteps outside my room. Slow, hesitant, almost frightened. A soft knock followed. Mom? Her voice was thin, shaky. Can I come in? I sat up. Of course. She stepped inside, holding the envelope I'd left on her pillow. It trembled in her hands. She looked like she wasn't sure whether to open it or set it on fire. What is this? She whispered. The truth, I said simply. About your father. About the life you think I never gave you. She swallowed. Why now? Because you can't move forward while carrying the wrong version of your past. She hesitated, then tore the envelope open with trembling fingers. Inside was a single handwritten letter, Robert's last message to her, a message she had never known existed. Angela sat at the edge of my bed and read. Angela, if you're reading this, it means your mother believed you were ready. You were always bright, fierce, and capable, but easily swayed by people who didn't deserve you. I never wanted our money to change who you were. That's why we lived simply. Not because we had nothing, but because I wanted you to learn what truly matters. I hope one day you forgive me for hiding my wealth, and I hope you forgive your mother for protecting it. Everything I built was for her and for you when you're strong enough to carry it without losing yourself. Our hands covered her mouth. Tears streamed down her face silently. He wrote this for me? Yes. She pressed the paper to her chest, breaking into soft sobs. All these years I thought you struggled. I thought I failed you. I thought I was the one carrying the weight for both of us. I shook my head. No, your father carried it for us. I just continued his promise. She looked up, guilt etched across her face. And I sold the beach house he built for you. That house? I smiled sadly. Your father bought 2 more properties after that. Losing it didn't destroy me. Losing you almost did. Angela broke, completely. She folded into my arms like she was collapsing under the weight of her own shame. I'm sorry, she whispered over and over. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't understand. I stroked her hair gently. Now you do. For the first time since this nightmare began, she held me, without pulling away, without resentment, without defensiveness, just raw honesty and pain. But healing doesn't come in one morning, and forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork, court hearings, police interviews, and quiet nights where Angela sat at the table, exhausted but determined. The man who had manipulated her, Evan, tried every trick in the book. He sent fake apologies, threatening messages, voicemails where he cried and begged, voicemails where he threatened to ruin her, voicemails where he said he'd always own her. Each one Angela forwarded to the investigator. Each one became another nail in the coffin of the case against him. For the first time, she wasn't avoiding responsibility. She was taking control of her life. It wasn't easy. Sometimes she broke down. Sometimes she doubted herself. Sometimes guilt ate at her so much she could barely breathe. One night, she whispered, "Mom, what if I can't change?" "You already have," I said. "You just haven't caught up with yourself yet." But the biggest breakthrough came 2 weeks later. It was a Wednesday afternoon when Angela came into the kitchen holding her laptop like it was a bomb. "Mom," she said nervously, I applied for a job." I blinked. "A job?" She nodded quickly, hands shaking. "It's at a local real estate office. They need a part-time assistant. I haven't worked in months, but I'm going to try." For a moment, I didn't speak. I just smiled, a deep, warm smile that felt like sunlight after years of cold days. "I'm proud of you," I said. She lowered her eyes, voice cracking. "Even after everything I did?" "Yes," I said. "Because you're trying to be someone better than who you were." She ended up getting the job. Her first paycheck wasn't much, but she held it like it was a trophy. But with progress came something else, fear. New responsibilities, new expectations, new temptations to fall back into old habits. One night, she stood in the doorway of my room, twisting her fingers. "Mom?" "Yes?" "Do you think Dad would be disappointed in me?" I shook my head. "No. He would be proud that you learned before losing everything permanently." Angela wiped her eyes. "I'm scared." "That means you care," I said. "Fear can guide you if you let it." Another 2 weeks passed. She continued working, she continued therapy, she continued rebuilding her credit, little by little. But she still hadn't faced the one thing that remained between us, the day she sold my house. She avoided the topic. She avoided the conversation. She avoided the truth. Until the morning she found the eviction notice. It wasn't for her. It wasn't for us. It was for him. Evan. He had been trying to intimidate her again, this time by showing up at his apartment building and causing a scene. The manager filed paperwork, the police got involved, and in the process, Angela received a copy of the report documenting his misconduct. She stared at it for a long time. Then she handed it to me. "Mom," she whispered, "I need to fix what I did." I looked at her gently. "How?" She took a deep breath. "By rebuilding what I destroyed, piece by piece, the same way I'm rebuilding myself." "And what do you want me to do?" I asked. She swallowed hard. "Okay." She exhaled shakily. "Okay." And that was the moment we took our first real step out of the darkness, together. But the journey wasn't over, not even close.
Because the next morning, something happened that neither of us expected. A letter arrived in the mailbox. Official. Stamped. Government issued. Angela looked at it, puzzled. Then she tore it open. Her hands trembled. Her face drained of color. She whispered, "Mom, you need to see this." And what she showed me changed everything.
Angela couldn't sleep that night. She lay stiff on the thin mattress, staring at the cracks in the ceiling as if they were splitting her life apart. Every breath felt heavier than the last. She kept replaying her mother's face at the door, calm, composed, almost unreadable. That expression was scarier than anger. It meant her mother had already decided something, and Angela wasn't sure she wanted to know what. The next morning, she dragged herself to the kitchen to find her mother quietly stirring oats on the stove. There was no greeting, no accusation, not even a look of disappointment, just silence. Somehow, that hurt more. Angela sat at the table slowly. I'll start job hunting today," she murmured, her voice small. Her mother placed a bowl in front of her without a word. She didn't sit, she didn't say good, she simply nodded once and walked outside. Angela wanted to break down right there, but she swallowed the ache and forced herself to eat. She needed energy. She needed determination. She needed to stop being the person who destroyed everything she touched. After breakfast, she stepped out to find her mother in the garden, pruning roses. Angela hesitated. "Mom, I'll pay you back, for everything." Her mother clipped a wilted petal, the sound sharp. "Good," she said, still not looking at her. "Start by paying back your dignity." Angela didn't know what that meant, but she nodded anyway. She left the house and walked to town. She applied at cafes, offices, any place with a window sign that even hinted at needing help. Most places thanked her politely and rejected her. A few didn't even look up from their screens while saying no. By afternoon, she was exhausted and humiliated. Her old life, the one she had taken so casually, so confidently, felt like it belonged to someone else entirely. Finally, she ended up outside the Community Arts Center. A small banner read, "Temporary assistant needed. Inquire inside." Angela almost didn't go in, convinced she'd face another rejection. But something told her she had to try. Inside, a woman with bright silver hair and paint-stained fingers looked up. "You're here about the assistant position?" "Yes, if it's still open," Angela said. "Do you have experience?" "No," she admitted honestly, "but I'm willing to learn anything at all." The woman studied her for an uncomfortably long moment. Then she said, "We'll try you for a week. If you show up, work hard, and don't make excuses, you stay." Angela's relief was so intense she almost cried. She nodded gratefully and took the small folder of instructions the woman handed her. The job wasn't glamorous: cleaning brushes, organizing supplies, running errands, packing equipment, but she didn't care. It was a start. On her way home, she kept touching the folder like it was something fragile and precious. When she reached the house, her mother was back in the kitchen, slicing vegetables. Angela didn't wait for permission this time. "I got a job," she said, softly. Her mother paused mid-slice. "Temporary?" "For now, but it's something. I'll make it work." Angela waited for approval, expecting none. Her mother simply nodded. "Good, then dinner's at 7. Angela wanted more. She wanted forgiveness, warmth, anything, but she understood she had to earn it, not demand it. So she went to her room and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the job folder again. For the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of hope. The first week at the art center nearly broke her. She woke before dawn, walked miles because she had no car, worked on her feet all day, and returned home with sore muscles and stained clothes. Her mother never made it easier, but she never criticized her either. She simply watched quietly, as if assessing who Angela was becoming. By the end of the week, the silver-haired woman called her into the office. "So?" Angela asked nervously. "You don't quit. I like that," the woman said. "You stay.
Part-time for now. Angela held her breath, then exhaled shakily. Thank you. Thank you so much. The woman gave her a small smile. Show up early Monday. Angela left in disbelief, hugging her bag against her chest. When she got home, she stepped into the kitchen and said, Mom, I got hired, officially. Her mother didn't smile exactly, but something softened in her face. Then wash your hands, she said. Dinner's ready. It was the closest thing to affection Angela had received in months, and it was enough. Over the next few weeks, her routine settled. Work, home, small chores, occasional small talk with her mom. The silence between them wasn't heavy anymore. It was simply quiet, healing. Sometimes they shared tea on the porch without speaking. Sometimes they cooked together, awkwardly. Sometimes they said nothing and let the simple presence be enough. Angela slowly began to feel human again. One evening, she returned home to find a familiar face leaning against the porch railing, Aurora. She froze, heart sinking. Aurora crossed her arms. So this is where you're hiding? Angela swallowed. I'm not hiding. I'm rebuilding. Without telling me? Aurora scoffed. After everything we've been through? Angela didn't know how to explain that she was ashamed to even let Aurora see her like this. But Aurora wasn't here to listen. I just wanted to see if you were alive, she said coldly. Edward's gone, by the way. Left town. I told you he was trouble. Angela stared at her, surprised. How did you know where I was? She told her, said, jerking her thumb toward the door. Angela turned to see her mother standing just inside, arms crossed, expression unreadable. You told her? Angela whispered. Her mother shrugged. She was worried, and I wanted to see what kind of friend she was. Aurora rolled her eyes. Well, now you've seen. I'm leaving. Angela didn't chase her this time. She didn't beg. She didn't apologize for breathing. She simply said, Take care, Aurora. Aurora stopped walking for half a second, stunned. Then she left, without a word. Angela closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling. Her mother stood still for a moment before saying, Some people leave when the storm hits. Others stay. Now you know the difference. Angela nodded silently. She felt something warm in her chest, something like strength. That night, for the first time in years, Angela and her mother sat at the kitchen table and talked. Not perfectly, not deeply, but honestly. Angela apologized, not for a specific act, but for the person she had allowed herself to become. Her mother didn't offer instant forgiveness, but she listened, and sometimes listening is the first step toward rebuilding something broken. As they washed dishes together, her mother finally said, Angela, you're not your mistakes, but you must live differently now. I will, Angela whispered, and for once, she believed it.
Angela's life began to settle into a rhythm she had never known before. Not a glamorous rhythm, not a comfortable one, but a stable, honest one. She woke early, packed her modest lunch, walked through the cool morning air to the arts center, and did her work without complaint. The silver-haired director, whose name she learned was Mrs. Klein, slowly began trusting her with more responsibilities. Little things at first, like managing the supply room, preparing classroom materials, and eventually helping with scheduling. Every time Mrs. Klein handed her a task that required judgment, Angela felt a small swell of pride. She hadn't felt reliable in years. She hadn't felt capable. Now she did. Back home, her mother's presence was like a quiet lighthouse, always steady, never intrusive. Her mother didn't praise her, but she didn't criticize her either. She watched, observed, measured, and Angela wanted, with every cell in her body, to prove worthy of that watchful gaze. One Friday evening, Angela returned from work earlier than usual. The sun was low, casting long golden streaks across the living room floor. She found her mother sitting at the table with a stack of envelopes and documents, the kind that made Angela's stomach twist automatically. For a second, she feared she was about to be told to leave again. But her mother simply gestured to the chair across from her. Sit. Angela sat slowly, her pulse quickening. Her mother pushed a small envelope toward her. That's your first month's rent. Angela blanked. Rent?
You're earning now, her mother said calmly. You contribute now. Not because I need your money, but because it matters that you learn how to stand on your own 2 feet. Angela opened the envelope. Inside was the amount she had expected, modest but fair. She nodded. I'll pay it. Every month, on time. Her mother didn't smile, but a soft flicker crossed her expression, approval. Angela placed the envelope back on the table, grateful and determined. Over the next few weeks, she grew more comfortable with her new life. She didn't have friends, not yet, but a few people at the art center occasionally chatted with her. She even began staying after hours to help Mrs. Klein with late projects, grateful for the extra hours and the extra learning. But one evening, everything cracked again. She had been walking home after a long shift, her bag heavy with supplies Mrs. Klein told her to borrow for weekend practice. Her steps slowed when she noticed a familiar car parked near the gate. Edward's car. Her heart sank into her stomach. He leaned against the hood, arms crossed, a smug smirk plastered across his face as if nothing had collapsed because of him, as if he had not completely erased her life months ago. Well, he said, pushing off the car and strolling toward her, if it isn't the girl who ran home to Mommy. Angela froze, her throat tightened. She had imagined what she'd say if she ever saw him again, lines filled with anger, strength, closure, but in front of him, the ghost of her old fear stirred. What are you doing here? She managed. Came to check on you, he sneered. Heard you're working at some paint-sniffing hobby shop. Cute. Angela felt her pulse throb in her temples. Go away, Edward. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You still owe me money. She stiffened. I don't owe you anything. You drained me dry. Edward chuckled darkly. You know what your problem is. You really think you're the victim. He reached for her arm. Before he could touch her, the front door swung open. Angela's mother stepped out, her stance sharp as a blade. Take your hand off my daughter. Edward froze. Her mother's voice wasn't loud, but it was firm enough to slice the air clean in half. Who the hell are you? Edward spat. Her mother walked down the path slowly, deliberately, until she was close enough that Edward instinctively stepped back. I'm the woman who knows exactly what you took from her, and I am the woman who will make sure you never touch her life again. Edward scoffed. Relax, Grandma. I'm just talking to her. Leave, her mother said, right now. Before I make a phone call you won't be able to talk your way out of. Edward hesitated. Something in her mother's eyes must have told him she meant it, because he gave Angela a final glare, then turned, muttering curses as he climbed into his car and sped away. Angela stood there trembling. She wasn't sure if it was fear or relief or shame, maybe all three. Her mother walked past her toward the house. Inside, she said. Angela followed. She felt like a child again, but not the pampered child she had been in her earlier life. This was different. This was vulnerability and accountability mixing together in a way that made her throat ache. Her mother closed the door and looked directly at her. If he comes back, you tell me. Immediately. Angela nodded. I didn't expect. He just showed up. He showed up because he thinks he still has control over you, her mother said, but he doesn't. Not anymore. Angela lowered her eyes. I'm sorry. I should have handled it better. No, her mother said quietly. You handled it by not going with him. That's enough. Angela blinked, surprised at the softness. You're rebuilding, her mother added. Rebuilding takes time. Angela swallowed her tears. She didn't cry. Instead, she let out a shaky breath and nodded. I won't let him near my life again. Good, her mother said. Now wash up. Dinner's getting cold. Angela did, and something inside her, something old and broken, tightened back together a little more. After dinner, Angela sat on the porch by herself. She watched the night sky, listened to crickets, let herself feel the weight of everything. The mistakes, the humiliation, the strange, quiet second chance she never expected to have. Her mother stepped out a few minutes later and sat beside her. Neither of them spoke. But after a long moment, her mother said, "Angela?" "Yes?" "I'm proud of the work you're doing." Angela's breath caught. She turned quickly, but her mother kept her eyes on the horizon, as if saying the words too directly would make them disappear. Still, they were real, and Angela held on to them like a lifeline. For the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't just surviving, she was changing. And change, real change, takes courage.
Angela woke the next morning feeling lighter than she had in a long time. Not because life was perfect, far from it, but because something had shifted inside her. Hearing her mother say she was proud, even in that quiet, reluctant way, felt like a small door unlocking in a part of her heart she thought had sealed shut forever. She dressed, packed her lunch, and left early for work. The air was cool, the streets empty, and for the first time since she'd started walking this route, she felt safe, strong. Not because Edward was gone, but because she knew now that he no longer had the power to control her. Her mother's words, steady and firm, had sliced through that fear. When she reached the art center, Mrs. Klein was already inside, adjusting canvases on the wall. She glanced over her shoulder. "You're early," she said. Angela smiled shyly. "Couldn't sleep." Good. I need help setting up the workshop room." Angela set her bag down and began assisting without hesitation, sorting paints, arranging brushes, lining tables with paper. It was simple work, but it grounded her. And the trust Mrs. Klein gave her, the way she silently relied on her, made Angela feel like she was rebuilding something more than just her career. Halfway through the morning, the front door chimed and a group of children entered for their weekend art class. One little girl, 6 or 7, stood awkwardly in the doorway, holding a crushed leaf as if it were a precious treasure. Angela knelt. "Hi there, that leaf is beautiful." The girl hesitated. "Can I paint it? My mom said I can bring something special." "Of course," Angela said warmly. "Let's find you a good spot." She helped the girl set up at a corner table. As she walked away, she heard the girl whisper to another child, "She's nice." Angela froze for half a second, a strange warmth blooming in her chest. When was the last time someone had called her that? By late afternoon, the class ended, the tables were cleaned, and the center slowly emptied. Angela stayed behind to help Mrs. Klein reorganize supply bins. "You're getting better with people," Mrs. Klein observed. Angela looked up, surprised. I didn't think you noticed." "I notice everything," the older woman said simply. Angela wasn't sure whether to feel intimidated or grateful, but she accepted the comment with a small nod. When her shift ended, she stepped outside and began the long walk home. The sky was streaked with late evening colors. She felt tired, but a good kind of tired, the kind that comes from honest work and a day without regret. She reached home expecting another quiet dinner, but as she opened the door, she heard voices. Soft, low, serious. Her mother was sitting at the table with someone, Mr. Peterson. Angela's stomach tightened. She knew him only vaguely as the man who helped her mother with financial matters. Something about his presence always made her uneasy, not because he was unkind, but because he represented information, knowledge, all the things Angela used to avoid. Her mother glanced at her. "Sit with us." Angela sat slowly, unsure what was coming. Mr. Peterson folded his hands. "I wanted to give your mother some updates, but she said you should hear them too." Angela felt cold. Updates about what? Her mother's face was calm, unreadable. About the fallout from Edward. "He's gone. You said he left town." "He did, but not before leaving behind a trail." Mr. Peterson opened a folder and slid a paper toward Angela. She stared at it, a record of transactions, withdrawals, transfers, her own name, connected to amounts she didn't recognize. I don't understand," she whispered. Mr. Peterson explained, "Edward used your accounts to move money through different channels. Not illegal amounts, but irregular enough that banks flagged your profile." Angela felt the blood drain from her face. "So, the bank, did they contact you?" she asked. "They contacted me," her mother said. Angela's eyes widened. "What? Why you?" "Because," her mother said evenly, "I'm your emergency contact,
And because I know how to handle things you don't. Angela swallowed hard. Am I in trouble? No, her mother said firmly, because I intervened before it became trouble. Angela stared at her hands. Shame washed over her. She hadn't just ruined her own life, she had dragged her mother into chaos again, even after everything. I'm sorry, she whispered. Her mother didn't move, didn't soften, didn't offer comforting lies. Instead, she said, being sorry is not enough, Angela, but your actions now matter more. Angela nodded, tears stinging her eyes. I'll fix whatever I can. You will, her mother said, and I'll guide you, but you will handle the work. Angela agreed without hesitation. For the first time, she wasn't running from responsibility, she was stepping into it. Mr. Peterson closed the folder. For now, everything is contained, but I wanted you to be aware. This is part of rebuilding. Angela thanked him quietly before he left. After he was gone, the house felt heavier. Angela sat across from her mother, waiting for more. Her mother finally looked at her with a measured gaze. You're not the same girl who walked back into this house months ago, she said. But don't forget how easy it is to fall back into old patterns. Angela nodded, wiping her eyes. I won't. I don't want to be her again. Her mother let out a slow breath. Not relief, something deeper. Maybe acceptance. Good, she said. Angela went to her room afterward, exhausted. She sat on the edge of her bed and stared at the quiet space around her. Her life was not glamorous. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And honesty hurt sometimes, but it also freed her. Later that night, she heard a soft knock. Her mother stood in the doorway, holding a folded blanket. You need an extra one. It's colder this week. Angela took it with shaking hands. Thank you, Mom. Her mother didn't reply. She just placed the blanket on the bed and turned to leave. But at the last second, she paused. You're doing better, she said. Angela's eyes filled instantly. I'm trying. Her mother nodded once and left. Angela laid down, hugging the blanket. She closed her eyes, and for the first time since her life had collapsed, she felt safe. Not because someone was protecting her from her consequences, but because someone was teaching her how to face them, and she wasn't running anymore. Angela woke earlier than usual the next morning. The house was still dark, quiet, and cold. She wrapped the extra blanket around her shoulders for a moment, taking in the comfort it brought. It wasn't just warmth, it felt like a silent gesture, a small bridge her mother had extended without saying the words out loud. Angela folded the blanket carefully and placed it at the foot of her bed before getting ready. She walked to work through a thin fog that hugged the ground. The air bit at her skin, but her steps were steady. For once, she wasn't rushing, wasn't anxious, she simply walked with purpose. When she reached the art center, she found Mrs. Klein waiting at the door with a stack of boxes. You're early again, she said. Angela took the top box without being asked. What's all this? Supplies for the senior art program, Mrs. Klein replied. I want you to help supervise today. Angela blinked. Me? Supervise? Mrs. Klein raised an eyebrow. Do you not want to? No, I do, Angela said quickly. I just didn't think I was ready. You won't know until you try. Angela smiled, feeling a warmth of pride fill her chest. She followed Mrs. Klein inside, ready to take on the responsibility. The senior program began late morning. A group of older adults entered with slow but eager steps. Some used canes, some had shaky hands, but all of them wore the soft glow of anticipation that art brought. Angela guided them to their seats, helped open their paint tubes, adjusted easels, and offered gentle encouragement. One of the seniors, a man named Harold, squinted at the blank canvas. I haven't painted in 30 years, he muttered. Angela leaned beside him. Good, that means your first stroke today will be brand new. He laughed. You talk like someone who's lived a lot. Angela didn't know what to say to that, but Harold gave her a small nod of respect, and it warmed her in ways she didn't expect. By afternoon, the room buzzed with soft laughter and conversation. Angela floated from table to table, offering help, refilling water jars, wiping spills. It wasn't glamorous. It was simple, genuine, human. And something about it made her feel like she finally belonged somewhere. When the program ended, Mrs. Klein called her over. You have patience, she said. Not everyone does. Angela shrugged shyly. I think they're just easy to like. Mrs. Klein gave her a long, thoughtful look. You're changing, she said quietly. Angela swallowed. I hope so. You are, Mrs. Klein said. And that's why I'd like you to assist with the youth program next month. Angela's eyes widened. Really? Yes, but it'll require more hours and more responsibility. Think about it. I don't need to think, Angela said. I want it. Mrs. Klein patted her shoulder softly, the closest thing to affection Angela had ever seen from her. She walked home that day with a strange sense of accomplishment. The sky had cleared and warm sunlight filtered through the trees. When she reached the gate, she spotted her mother kneeling beside a row of potted plants. Hey, Angela said softly. Her mother brushed soil off her hands. Home early? I helped with the senior program today, Angela said. They want me to help with the youth program next month, too. Her mother studied her carefully. Do you think you can manage it? Yes, I do. Her mother gave a slow nod. Approval wasn't spoken, but it was there. They went inside together, settling into their quiet routine. Angela peeled potatoes while her mother chopped herbs. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It felt like something growing, something rebuilding itself with patience and care. But halfway through dinner, her mother set down her fork. Angela, she said, we need to discuss something. Angela straightened. What is it? Your accounts, her mother began. The ones Edward used. There are still inconsistencies, nothing dangerous yet, but if you want to rebuild your life fully, you need to address them. Angela felt a faint tremor in her chest, but didn't panic this time. What do I need to do? She asked. Her mother met her eyes. We go to the bank together tomorrow, and you speak for yourself. Angela inhaled slowly, aware of the weight of those words. She wasn't being protected this time, she was being guided. Okay, I'll do it. The next morning, they went to the bank. Angela's palms were sweaty, but she walked inside with her head held high. A representative named Claire greeted them and pulled up Angela's accounts. I see what happened, Claire said gently, but it's fixable. Angela listened, asked questions, took notes. She didn't cry, she didn't hide behind her mother. She faced every uncomfortable detail. When the meeting ended, Claire smiled. You handled that well, she said. Most people would have panicked. Angela smiled weakly. I've done enough panicking for a lifetime. Her mother placed a hand on her back, light, steady, supportive. Angela froze at the gesture, surprised but comforted. They walked home in silence until Angela finally said, Thank you for not giving up on me. Her mother didn't respond for several steps. Then she said quietly, I didn't help you because you earned it, Angela. I helped you because you needed it. Earning comes now. Angela nodded, understanding the difference. That evening, she sat on her bed and looked around her small room. For the first time, it didn't feel like punishment. It felt like a beginning. She reached for her notebook and wrote 3 things. I'm rebuilding. I'm trying. I'm not the same. Her life wasn't fixed. There were still things to face, but she finally believed she could handle them. Tomorrow, she would go back to work. She would help the seniors again. She would continue learning, continue growing, continue becoming the person she should have been all along. She wasn't done fighting for her life, but now she was fighting the right way.
Angela's alarm rang before the sun rose, but she was already awake. Her mind had been turning all night. Quiet, steady, not in panic like before, but in reflection. The meeting at the bank had shaken her, but in a productive way. It made her realize she wasn't helpless anymore. She could face things, she could fix things, and most surprisingly, her mother was letting her. She dressed, packed her usual simple lunch, and stepped outside to find the morning colder than usual. Mist clung to the ground like a thin veil. She wrapped her arms around herself and began the long walk to the art center. When she arrived, Mrs. Klein wasn't inside the building. She was outside near the loading dock, overseeing a delivery truck unloading large canvases. There you are, she called out. Angela grabbed a box before the workers could stop her. Are we setting up for an event? Something like that, Mrs. Klein replied. The community showcase is next week. I'd like you to help organize the student submissions. Angela froze. The showcase was a huge event. Local schools, senior groups, art clubs, all of them submitted paintings and sculptures. Being trusted with even a small part of that event was a big step. "You want me to manage that?" Angela asked softly. "Not manage," Mrs. Klein said. "Assist. But it's still a major responsibility. Think you can handle it?" Angela lifted the box confidently. "Yes, I can." Mrs. Klein smiled in that subtle, rare way of hers. "Good." Inside the center, Angela stacked the boxes and began sorting through the submissions. Watercolor pieces from elementary kids, acrylic landscapes from seniors, charcoal sketches from teens. Each piece told a story. Touching them carefully, she felt something warm and nostalgic inside her, like a version of herself she had forgotten. As she worked, a teenager approached with a nervous expression. Excuse me?" the girl asked. Angela turned. "Yes?" "I submitted a painting for the showcase, but I accidentally spilt water on it earlier. Do you think, could I still fix it?" Angela looked at the girl's trembling hands clutching the damaged piece. A year ago, she would have told her to talk to someone else, or she would have judged her, or pretended she didn't see her. But now, she gently took the painting. "You can fix this," Angela said. "Come on, I'll show you how." She guided the girl to a table, handed her fresh paper towels, demonstrated how to lift excess water without smudging the colors, and suggested ways to reinforce the weak parts. By the time the painting was dry again, the girl looked relieved. "You're really nice," she whispered. Angela blinked, stunned. Those words still hit her like a shock. She wasn't used to them. "Thank you," she said softly. "Now, go submit it again. It deserves to be seen." The girl ran off, smiling. When Angela turned around, she found Mrs. Klein standing by the doorway, arms crossed, observing. "You're good with people when you stop overthinking," Mrs. Klein said. I laughed nervously. Was I overthinking? "Always," Mrs. Klein replied, then walked back to the front office. Angela shook her head, smiling to herself, and returned to sorting. Hours later, when she finally stepped outside to head home, the sky was glowing with soft pink light. She walked with a mix of exhaustion and satisfaction, her legs sore, her shoulders aching, but her heart strangely full. As she reached the front gate of the house, she froze. Her mother was outside, sitting on the porch steps, staring at something in her hands. Angela approached quietly. "Mom?" Her mother looked up, her face unreadable. In her hands was a photograph, one Angela recognized immediately. It was a picture of her at 19, smiling at some party, carefree, glowing with the kind of confidence she used to wear like perfume. Edward was next to her, arms slung around her shoulders, both of them laughing. Angela's stomach twisted. Her mother didn't speak right away. She simply held the picture between two fingers and said, "I found this behind the cabinet while cleaning." Angela lowered her head. "I should have thrown it away years ago." "Why didn't you?" her mother asked calmly. Angela hesitated. "Because I didn't want to admit how wrong I'd been. Keeping it made it feel like it wasn't a mistake, like I hadn't wasted years." Her mother looked at her with a quiet intensity. "You didn't waste years, Angela. You learned from them. Pain teach too." Angela swallowed hard. "It doesn't feel like learning." "It will," her mother said, then handed her the photograph. "Do with it what you think is right." Angela stared at the picture for a moment, studying her old self, bright-eyed, careless, oblivious. Then she tore the photograph cleanly in half. It didn't feel violent. It felt freeing. Her mother didn't say a word. She simply rose from the steps and walked inside, leaving the torn pieces in Angela's hands. Angela took a shaky breath and dropped the pieces into the trash bin. She stood there for a long moment, letting go of everything that picture represented. Inside, the house smelled like rosemary and garlic. Her mother was cooking. Angela washed her hands and joined her in the kitchen. They cooked together quietly, the rhythm familiar and new at the same time. During dinner, her mother said, "Mr. Peterson called earlier." Angela tensed. "Is something wrong?" "No," her mother said, "but he wants to meet with you alone next week to finalize some adjustments on your accounts." Angela's pulse quickened. Alone?
It's time, her mother said simply. He's my advisor, but you need to become comfortable handling your own things. Angela nodded slowly. She knew her mother was right. She had leaned on others too long. It was time to step fully into her own life. After dinner, Angela went to her room and sat on her bed, staring at the writing she'd made the night before. I'm rebuilding. I'm trying. I'm not the same. Tonight, she added a fourth line. I'm becoming someone I can trust. She closed the notebook, feeling something shift inside her again, deeper this time. Not just hope, not just effort. Identity. She was building a new version of herself, and she wasn't afraid of the work. She turned off the lamp, lay down, and let her eyes close. For once, her dreams were peaceful.
I woke up that morning feeling a strange mix of relief and anticipation. After weeks of watching Angela struggle, I finally knew the moment had arrived when she would see the full picture. She had endured the humiliation, the exhaustion, the sleepless nights, and yet, through all of it, she had grown. She was no longer the spoiled, entitled woman who had left for Europe chasing a man's illusions. She was someone who had earned every ounce of her newfound strength. Mom, Angela said, entering the kitchen with a hesitant smile, I have a feeling today will be different. Yes, honey, I replied, keeping my tone light, concealing the satisfaction that had been building inside me for weeks. It will be a day full of answers, and maybe a few surprises. We drove to Mr. Peterson's office in silence. Angela clutched her bag tightly, and I could sense the nerves beneath her composed exterior. She didn't know that I had orchestrated every step of this journey, that the debts and chaos she had faced were part of a plan designed not to punish her, but to teach her a lesson she would never forget. Once inside the office, Mr. Peterson greeted us warmly. Good morning, Mrs. Brooks. Miss Brooks, thank you for coming. Thank you for seeing us, Angela replied, her voice steady, yet slightly anxious. Now, before we discuss your legal situation, Mr. Peterson began, I want you to look through these documents carefully. He handed her a thick folder. Angela opened it slowly, flipping through the pages. Her eyes widened. I don't understand. These papers say Edward forged my signature, that he committed fraud, that I am not responsible for any of his debts. That's correct, Mr. Peterson said calmly. We've gathered substantial evidence proving that you were manipulated and deceived. Legally, you are entirely protected from the consequences of his actions. Angela stared at me, confusion and disbelief etched on her face. But how is this possible? Who paid for all this? I inhaled deeply, knowing it was finally time. It's time you know the truth, Angela, I said softly. Everything you faced these past weeks, the hardship, the struggle, the nights you cried yourself to sleep, it was never because I abandoned you. It was because I wanted you to see the truth for yourself. She looked at me puzzled. What truth? That your father left me far more than you realized, more than enough to solve any problem you faced. The moment you returned, I could have fixed everything in an instant, but I didn't, because you needed to learn the value of responsibility, the importance of dignity, and the strength that comes from facing consequences. Tears welled up in her eyes. You let me suffer, even though you could have helped? Yes, I said, meeting her gaze steadily, because love isn't just about saving someone from pain. Sometimes love is letting them grow through it. You needed to understand that life's lessons are earned, not handed out on a silver platter. Tears welled up in her eyes. You let me suffer, even though you could have helped? Yes, I said, meeting her gaze steadily, because love isn't just about saving someone from pain. Sometimes love is letting them grow through it. You needed to understand that life's lessons are earned, not handed out on a silver platter. Tears welled up in her eyes. You let me suffer, even though you could have helped? Yes, I said, meeting her gaze steadily, because love isn't just about saving someone from pain. Sometimes love is letting them grow through it. You needed to understand that life's lessons are earned, not handed out on a silver platter. Angela remained silent, her mind clearly racing through weeks of hardship, realizing how carefully every moment had been orchestrated. Then she exhaled, a mix of relief and recognition. So, everything I went through, all the work, the cleaning, the decisions, it wasn't just punishment? No, honey, I said softly. It was education. You needed to see what it meant to hit rock bottom, to face reality without illusions. And now you've grown from it. You've become someone I can be proud of, someone who understands true value, responsibility, and dignity. Mr. Peterson spoke up quietly. Miss Brooks, your mother has covered all legal expenses. Your debts are fully cleared, and all properties that were wrongfully taken are restored to your name. You are free. Angela blinked, overwhelmed. Free? I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I said. You just need to live differently. You've earned the right to start fresh, to approach life with wisdom you didn't have before. For the first time in weeks, Angela's shoulders relaxed. She took a deep breath and smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile. Mom, I understand now. I understand why you did this, and I'm grateful. I felt a surge of emotion. Gratitude, yes, but also pride. My daughter had transformed in front of my eyes. She wasn't just surviving, she was learning, growing, and beginning to understand what it truly meant to be responsible for her life. Over the next few weeks, our routine changed. Angela kept her cleaning job, not because she needed the money, but because she wanted to feel the value of her own labor, the dignity that comes from contributing to her own life. She studied financial management, learned how to budget, and began planning her return to higher education, all on her own terms. One evening, as she returned from work, she sat beside me on the porch. Mom, I think I finally figured out the kind of person I want to be, she said. And what kind of person is that? I asked. Someone who values effort over ease, responsibility over entitlement, and respect over wealth. I want to build a life that matters, not just for me, but for others who don't have the same support I've had. I want to help women who face challenges similar to mine so they don't have to hit rock bottom alone. I felt my heart swell. That's remarkable, Angela. Your father would be proud. Yes, Mom, she said, smiling softly. And I want to do it in a way that respects the foundation you and I are building together. I want to be independent, but also part of something bigger than myself. I want to give back. That night, after she went to her room to study, I sat alone on the porch, watching the stars. For the first time in months, I felt complete peace. My plan had worked. Angela had learned the lessons she needed to learn, not by being handed solutions, but by facing reality, making mistakes, and rising from them stronger. I whispered into the quiet night, Robert, we did it. She understands now. She's stronger, wiser, and ready to live a life of meaning. And I felt, as I hadn't in years, a sense of fulfillment that only comes when love, patience, and careful guidance converge to create transformation. Mom, Angela said the next morning, walking into the kitchen with an envelope in her hand, I got something today. What is it, honey? I asked, sipping my coffee. It's from the university, she said, opening the envelope with a nervous smile. I've been accepted into the master's program for social work. I start next semester. I felt a swell of pride. That's wonderful. I'm so proud of you. But Mom, she continued, I want to pay for it myself. I've been saving from my job and I want to earn this opportunity on my own. I nodded, understanding exactly why. This was the woman Angela had become, independent, thoughtful, and aware of the value of hard work. You don't have to, honey. We can easily afford it. I know, she said, smiling softly, but I want to do this myself. I need to prove to myself that I can stand on my own 2 feet, even with everything we've been through. Aurora came by that afternoon, as she had every Friday for the past few months. She poured herself tea and watched Angela and me interact, a smile of admiration on her face. Antonia, she said, I have to confess something.
At first, I thought you were cruel to Angela. I couldn't understand why you let her suffer. And now? I asked, curious. Now I see it, she said. You weren't cruel. You were wise. You let her experience what she needed to so she could grow into a woman who respects life, responsibility, and her own power. Angela, who had been quietly listening, smiled. I finally get it too. Mom didn't save me by giving me money. She saved me by teaching me to save myself, to face my mistakes, and to grow stronger because of them. Days passed in a rhythm of learning and building. Angela continued her job, not because she needed to, but because she valued the lessons it offered: discipline, responsibility, and independence. She made friends with the women she worked with, listened to their stories, and even began helping those in need using some of her earnings. One evening, as we sat on the porch, Angela turned to me. Mom, I've been thinking. I want to do something meaningful with our family home, something that helps others the way you've helped me. What do you have in mind? I asked. I want to transform our beach house into a temporary shelter for women leaving abusive or financially unstable situations, a place where they can recover, rebuild, and find hope. Tears welled in my eyes. That's perfect, honey. Your father would have loved this idea. The best homes, Angela said, aren't the ones we keep to ourselves. They're the ones we share to create safety, love, and opportunity for others. That's what I want to do now. Over the next few months, we turned the beach house into a welcoming sanctuary. Angela balanced her studies, her job, and the new project, demonstrating the strength, empathy, and leadership she had cultivated through her journey. She was no longer the woman who had sought a life of luxury without effort. She was a leader, a giver, and a daughter I was proud to stand beside. One night, after finishing her shift, Angela came home and sat beside me on the porch. Mom, do you remember Mrs. Johnson, the woman who taught me tricks to clean efficiently? Yes, of course, I replied. Well, she asked me if I'm your daughter, the one from the north side of town, Angela said, smiling. When I told her yes, she asked why I'm still working. I explained that I need to prove to myself I can stand on my own. And what did she say? She laughed and said, Honey, that's the difference between being rich and acting rich. Your mom taught you how to be truly rich. I hugged her tightly. And now you know, honey, true wealth isn't measured by money or possessions. It's measured by respect, love, dignity, and the effort we put into building a meaningful life. Weeks later, Angela had settled into a new rhythm. She had access to everything she could ever need, yet she chose to live with intention. She was using her resources to help others, continuing her studies, and working with me to expand the foundation. Edward was no longer a shadow in our lives. He had been arrested and was facing consequences abroad, but we felt no anger or desire for revenge. His actions had been part of the journey that shaped Angela into the woman she had become. As I watched her, I realized the depth of her transformation. The girl who had left for Europe, chasing illusions of love and luxury, had returned as a woman grounded in reality, capable of love, empathy, and responsible independence. Our bond had changed, strengthened not just by blood, but conscious choice and shared growth. That night, I spoke to Robert in my heart, as I often did. We did it, my love. She understands now. She's strong, compassionate, and ready to face life on her terms. And for the first time since his passing, I felt a quiet reassurance, as if he were smiling at us from the stars. Justice, in its truest form, had arrived not as punishment, but as guidance, not as revenge, but as education. We had both gained something far more valuable than wealth, a relationship rooted in mutual respect, understanding, and love, a foundation that no external circumstance could shake. And now, as I sit here sharing this story with you, I hope you take away one lesson. Life isn't always about avoiding pain or seeking comfort. Sometimes the challenges we face are the lessons we need, the teachers we didn't know we had, and the pathways to becoming stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you reflect on your own life, please consider supporting the channel by sending a super thanks. Every contribution helps me bring more true life stories to you. And don't forget to subscribe, because there are many more journeys, struggles, and triumphs waiting to be shared. Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and maybe your own story. Which part of Angela's journey resonated with you the most? Let's connect in the comments, and let's continue to learn from life's hardest lessons together. With love and respect, thank you for being part of this journey.